Has anybody ever tried to rate a tornado?
And I would like to know why you can never get to the end of a rainbow.
What's the worst disaster in Iowa?
What are your top 3 movies that involve weather?
Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome into Weathered Questions, everyone. We're answering the meteorology questions on your radar. My name is Jan Kaj, joined by my co-host Kai O'Mara, meteorologist from lovely old Iowa here in the Midwest, and we're so glad that you are joining us for our first episode of 2026. We've been off for a little bit for the holidays, but it's been really nice, and we're excited to get back and join you guys. How has your last month been, Kai?
It's been very good. We had a kind of a typical lull at work. It wound down a little bit around the holidays and actually took almost all of winter break just off for the first time ever. So it was great. Girls were in a great mood. We hung out every day, and I actually got a little restless near the end. Like, okay, it's time to get back to a routine now. So yeah, it was a good thing. And school's back in session, so everybody's happy. It's been very good. Didn't have to start the snowblower once, Jan. How about you?
I know. It's been very lacking when it goes from, a very snowy Thanksgiving, at least for some of us across the country, to pretty much nothing over the, Christmas and New Year's holidays. It's kind of wild for us, but we're so glad that those of you who are coming back with us here are here, and thanks to those who have maybe shared us with your family over the holidays. Again, reminder, submit your questions, weatheredquestions@gmail.com, to join in the conversation. And if you're a radio listener, remember, you can always catch up on old episodes, maybe ones that you've missed, by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. All right, we're starting off with a fun new segment here in the new year, Kai.
Yes, we are. And it's because of the shared love of clouds that we both have. I actually have a whole private website dedicated to that, and K-12 education as well. But there are a couple of gift idea books on there, and one of them, both you and I own. It's called A Cloud a Day. Now, we're not going to do a cloud a day because we don't have time to do a podcast every day, Jan. But you came up with this idea over break, and I love it. And I think our listeners are going to love it too. It's not a cloud a day, but it's a cloud a week. So what is our cloud of the week here this week?
We're starting off this week with cirrus clouds. And the kind of inspiration for this, at least from my end, again, we both share a love of clouds, but one of my favorite things to do is I'm just like, driving around, walking around, whatever, is to my husband to be like, what kind of cloud is that? What kind of cloud is that? I just love quizzing him.
There's a lot out
clouds.
there. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, and we get so many questions, both of us, about clouds because people are always seeing them. So we're starting off with cirrus because that's one that we get a lot of in the winter months. And the reason for that is because they are very high up in the atmosphere, and they're made pretty much entirely out of ice crystals because they're so high up. And so a lot of times when you get a clear day in the winter months, maybe you don't have big puffy thunderstorm style clouds, but you just have a few kind of wispy clouds floating well overhead. Those are probably going to be your cirrus clouds. So characteristics of a cirrus cloud, they're those thin wispy clouds. Sometimes people will call them like a mare's tail. There's a couple other names that some people will refer to them as, but that scientific name is cirrus, which actually translates back to the Latin roots of thin, wispy, hair-like in structure. So those are the ones that are really, really high up, all the way up in the upper troposphere, and they're fun little clouds, right? They don't really give us any weather, but they're very important in terms of keeping the correct amount of sunlight and stuff coming in, something we as meteorologists will refer to sometimes as Earth's radiation budget. But altogether, nothing that folks on the ground need to be too concerned with other than just enjoying some nice fair weather clouds overhead.
Yeah, and so cirrus clouds are also the causes of most ice halos, as we call them, like sundogs. These suspended ice crystals, they get a little bit lower in the wintertime, as you mentioned. But also they have something called moon dogs out there where you get a bit of a halo around the moon, or the moon might look a little bit fuzzy. If the moon looks really fuzzy at night, it's probably one of two things. One could be fog developing right on top of you. That's possible. But in most cases, it's a high, thin layer of cirrus clouds, almost like a piece of wax paper over a light bulb, where it kind of just filter out the light a little bit. And so it scatters around those ice crystals and forms a halo. The formal name for the daylight version of this is actually sundog. And sundogs tend to happen in a very Arctic environment where you've got suspended ice crystals, but you can see that around cirrus clouds if it scatters the sunlight just perfectly. And that's a whole division of atmospheric optics that gets excruciatingly complicated. But the whole folklore behind sundogs was these pieces of light that are on opposite sides of the halo actually follow the sun upwards in the sky, much like a dog follows their master everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's where the name sundog came from. So you can also thank cirrus clouds for that. And they don't have huge impacts on our temperature. There are other clouds that do. These just happen to be really, really thin ones. So you wouldn't want to... you wouldn't want to grab a cast iron skillet with a piece of aluminum foil. That ain't going to help you. But if you used a really thick pot holder, that helps you. So we'll get to a thicker cloud another week. But cirrus are the real high, thin ones, and they have some impact on temp, but not a lot. Usually not a lot.
Exactly. Minimal or more on a broader scale, kind of like we referenced there. So yeah, there's your cloud of the week, cirrus clouds. Obviously, you're listening, so we can't really show you pictures of them, but they're fun to, check out if you want to do an internet search for those and see what they might look like if you're still not quite sure. But again, if you think of a very thin, wispy strand of hair as a cloud, that's your cirrus cloud.
Yep. Think of a horse's tail blowing in the wind. And that's about perfect.
Exactly.
That's about perfect.
All right. Well, talking about those clouds that we see in the winter, we're going to move on to a question that we've been asked a little bit here over the last couple of months. Is this winter warmer than normal? We went from a little bit of extra snow seemingly at the start of it, and now we've almost had a shift to where it feels like, all right, it's spring already. What's going on here, Kai?
Well, we'll address question number one. And we're going to get question number one, Jan, between now and St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Are we done with snow? The answer is no. Okay. The answer is no. Don't even ask.
Once we get to January 1st, everyone thinks that, okay, snow can be gone. It's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works.
Never January, how it works.
Even February, and in some really off years, March can sometimes be your snowiest month in the Midwest, depending on what blows in. Actually, out in Colorado, March is the snowiest month of the year for them. So I always have to take a laugh because I hear some reporters sometimes that will say, yeah, Colorado is really behind on their snow. Well, yeah, it's 2 months till it peaks out there.
Yeah.
Same folks that say it's the end of June and hurricane season is so quiet. Well, it typically is in June. So it's just having the awareness of that. But this has been kind of interesting. And so I know we have a broad listening audience in terms of geography. And we have some fun stats at the end of the program that Jan's going to share with us about that. So I'm going to try and keep those as broad as I can. There is one specific stat, though, that kind of backs all this up. So if we start talking about how things started, and if you're in the state of Iowa or any state surrounding, this will all apply to you. Even the southern U.S. was pretty cold in this time, too. So you take Thanksgiving and go till about mid-December. If you're east of the Rockies and north of Tallahassee, Florida, you experienced a top 20 winter, generally in terms of cold air. It was very cold for those 3 weeks. For example, central Illinois, central Arkansas, top 10 in terms of coldest period of weather for those 3 weeks. It was darn cold. We had below zero temps. We had deep snow cover. Then it flipped from December 15th to January 10th, where Texas and north, we go from super, super low on the temps to number one rank on the temp, meaning that we're warmest. So a great example of this is Lincoln, Illinois. The climate district within Lincoln, Illinois went from top 3 coldest 3 weeks from Thanksgiving to mid-December to the warmest 3 weeks.
Oof.
Yeah, from December 10th to December 15th to January 10th. So like 3.5 weeks, I guess. But the bottom line is the whole pattern flipped. And you sit there and you go, man, like, has that happened before? Is that normal? And logically, people wonder, okay, the first week goes fine. Second week goes fine. Third week, you're like, all right, so is winter done? Well,
Yep.
no, it's not. But I did go back and look at some statistics. This happens to be from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And of the top 4 years in which late November and December started really strong, which was 18.8 inches of snow or greater, all of those years, except for 1905, which we pretty much have to take the spotter's word for it, unless they're 121 years old, which they
Can't go
aren't.
find them anymore.
We can't really go ask them. Every single January had less than 6 inches in it in those really, really snowy starts. But then in February, it all went off the rails. Some years were still pretty weak. And then other years like 2011, we had the infamous Groundhog Day blizzard that hit from January 31st to February 3rd, tore up the Midwest.
Yep.
So the bottom line is it's going to come and go. We noticed at our workplace close to winter break for us, there was a temperature close to 60 degrees below zero in northern Canada. That's intensely cold. And down where we were in the lower 48, it was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there. It just hasn't made a move yet. And so you have to think that it's coming. But I'll be very frank with you, Jan. I don't know when it's coming. I mean, I would think the next 2 to 3 weeks we would see this flop back to the cold and snowy side, but I'm not fully sure. I would think so, but it just goes to show that this kind of stuff has happened before. It's nothing that's overly unprecedented, but it is really annoying that the sledding hills had nobody on them again during winter break.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the neck. And now part of me wants to go and say, I want to search all the winter breaks in Iowa in the last 20 years and compare them to spring break and see who had more snow.
That would actually be incredibly interesting.
I think it'd be worth a blog post. I think it'd be worth a discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, maybe not necessarily always snow, but just if there was
just
warmer winter breaks than spring breaks. Like spring break can get kind of disgusting sometimes.
Well, and it just seems like every time the kids are off, the weather just sucks,
It does, yeah.
For whatever break it's supposed to be. Like winter break, we're out here shooting baskets in the driveway, So anyway, that's kind of an interesting take on something like this where it pulls back and just it hides for a while. We had some really good rain in Iowa earlier this past weekend and late last week. So that was interesting to see too. It was last Thursday into Friday. We had some
that's how we discovered one of our windows is leaking.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is not something you would. Yeah, well, it's also just not something you would normally expect to find in January, right? Because normally you don't have pounding rainfall. But yeah, we had that. And in December, the last of our snow got killed off by another rainstorm. It has been, it's not necessarily, the lack of snow isn't for lack of precipitation. It's just that it's been warm. And so anything that's fallen has been rain, soaks right in and it's gone in an instant. But I mean, the grass is green in January and December, which is wild.
Yeah. Well, and I got somebody on this when they were asking about the winter and said, oh, no, we need the moisture. We need the snow. And I said, well, no. Remember what snow is made of. Snow's still made of water. It's just in a different form. Mm-hmm. If we can get an inch of rain in a night, that's a lot better in my world than having to snow blow a foot of snow in the morning.
Absolutely.
At least for me.
Absolutely.
Our ground is really soft here in the eastern half of the state. We're totally thawed out. Nothing was ponding. It all went in the ground. So that is great for the farming season, by the way. Great for agriculture to have that type of rain. I know it's weird, but the rivers didn't do much. They really didn't do much. A lot of it went in the ground. So
and think about all the the springs, the marches, the times where you get flooding because all the ice breaks up all at once, and you have all the runoff happening from melting snow because of a sudden warm up. At this point, at least, we're not concerned about that because what fell earlier helps keep us on pace, but has already soaked into the ground versus running off and going away and not actually benefiting the areas that they are. So yes, there are, absolute negatives to this, but there's also those net positives as well.
Yep. And I bet you we have some local snowplow companies that are kind of chomping here, getting ready. They want to go move some snow and sand and salt some stuff again, which can get us into our trivia question here today,
Yeah,
Jan,
let's do it.
because this is a 50-50 shot. We're not going to make it too hard coming into the new year here. But this is your trivia question. Then we'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. We'll get you the answer as well. So it's a true or false. It's very simply this statement. Snow is an insulator. True or false? Snow is an insulator. So why don't you go ahead and get yourself a couple of seconds to think about that. Grab another cup of coffee. If you're listening to us on the road, just keep driving, I guess. we'll have the answer for you here in about, eyes on the road. We'll have the answer here in about 5-6 seconds or so. All right, well, I hope your eyes are still on the road. I could have done a 6-7.
Oh, okay.
And I just did.
Kai, that's so last year. Come on.
No kidding. What's going to be the new one this year? I don't know if you can top that one, but here's your trivia question answer. Snow is an insulator. If you said true, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. True is the correct answer here. And what happens with snow, you wind up getting this layer of snow and it can actually protect things. It can protect that Arctic air from getting down deep into the ground. Mm-hmm. If you have a week of 20 degrees below zero and you've got a foot of snow down, or you don't have a foot of snow down, you have no snow, you're actually going to see your ground frost go much, much deeper if you don't have that snow cover protective layer. You see the same things on lakes and rivers too. You'd think, oh my gosh, it's so cold. Look at the snow on top of the river ice. Yeah, but the river ice isn't growing very much. So Snow is in fact an insulator. And so now if we get cold without snow cover, you're actually going to start to see some ice regrow again. So just keep that in mind throughout the season.
It can almost be a little counterintuitive because we think about when we have snow on the ground, how much colder it feels, in part of one state that has snow on the ground while another part is still bare doesn't. The temperature's going to be colder generally where that snow is, but that's obviously above the snow. But underneath, it's actually insulating and keeping in that temperature and pretty much keeping it to a pretty much straight 32 degrees. It's not going to go further down to that because it keeps the colder air out.
Right. Yeah. Well, and if you can keep things up close to that 32 degree mark, both of the pavement and in the ground surfaces, when you do get snow and ice, if we start talking, road salt kind of stuff, salt is a heck of a lot more effective closer to freezing than it is when you're way, way down there.
Well, let's dive into that. Let's get into kind of what happens there. Because, we do have plenty of people that will ask about that. And why is salt more effective at one temperature versus another? Or why does applying extra salt at other times not work as well? The answer is not actually always just put more salt on it, it'll melt off. So let's tackle that first one. If the temperature is, a little bit warmer, why does salt work better there, Kai?
Well, you're closer to the point of freezing as it is. And so you don't have to lower that freezing point of water very much. If you're at 28 degrees, you want to get some ice broken up, and that salt can lower that freezing point of water by just 4 degrees and turn into water now. You don't nearly have that delta in temperature that you might have if you're down to, say, 10 degrees, where it's going to be a whole lot harder to get that water temperature down to that level. So I actually experimented with this when I was in elementary school because I'm a nerd and that's how I roll.
Science fair project or just you on a fun weekend?
No, I was trying to figure out how in the world can we chill down a can of pop as quickly as possible without blowing it up.
I love this experiment.
Because, it'd all be room temperature, and my mom always enjoyed her pop really cold. And I'm like, all right, well, listen up. How about we do this? How about we put a ton of salt water in this jug and see if we can get it down to 0 degrees. And then we just stick that can of pop in there for about 2 minutes, and you should be nice and cold. And it actually worked. Now,
Yeah.
we had a deep freeze that eventually finally froze the water up. So I think I figured out, either how much salt I put in. I may have put in too much, and it kind of got a little crusty in there. But boy, you wouldn't want that water over the top of the can, because all of a sudden you get a nice shot of salt when you're trying to drink a Diet Coke.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't go down very well. But that was the science. The science was, how can we keep water as water with having that salt in it, even at a deep freeze temp of around 5 degrees or so? And that's how we wound up doing it. Is we had to add a ton of salt to do it. But if you want to keep it at 28, 29 degrees, it doesn't require a whole lot of salt to do that.
Yeah. And when we're talking about temperatures that get colder, so road salt, salt in general, it works best at doing that process above about 20 degrees or so. So once you start getting temperatures down below that, for us in the Midwest, 15 degrees, 10 degrees is not all that uncommon in the winter, but road salt is less effective. And the reason for that is because you are still lowering that freezing point, but once it melts, it hits that, that air temperature, and it's still too cold, and it is still going to turn right back into ice. Basically, it's not going to be able to melt it off entirely and keep it as water in order to clear the roadways or clear the sidewalks or whatever it is that you're trying to not make icy. And so then sometimes it can actually cause even more problems because you have those slick spots, or you have some kind of watery spots on top of ice it can create, things like that. If you have the friction of cars going over that ice, melting it, and then it refreezes again because it's too cold and that salt isn't able to be as effective, that can cause even more bigger problems at times. So that's when you would see a lot of times your road crews transitioning more to a salting, or from a salting method to a sanding method, or a different solid material that is just helping you get traction, but it's really not removing the ice in any way.
Yep, I like the traction aspect too, because even if it can't fully do its job, even if you can roughen up ice a little bit, that can mean a world of difference to cars trying to get from point A to point B. That's for certain.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jan. Well, this program started amongst a text message between us two about a year ago.
About a year ago, it has been.
It takes a while. It takes a while to get these programs off the ground.
Yes.
There's some planning that's involved. We have to figure out when we're going to do this, what kind of things we're going to talk about, how we're going to structure this, how we're going to work with folks on the back end to make this happen, what software we're going to use, what hardware we're going to use. So it comes down to
endless on our end, in addition to your end.
So yes, we started this in June. This was our very first Weathered Question podcast came out in June. And I understand, Jan, that you are armed with some statistics.
We are nerds.
Our last 6 months.
Yeah, we're weather nerds. We're science nerds. We love a good bit of data.
Yeah, what kind of data you got?
I've got stats.
What kind of things do you have?
So we've been podcasting for 6 months now. That equates to 746 minutes of podcasts. So if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you for listening to all of those. Our episodes, roughly about half an hour or so, maybe slightly under that. We've got 27 episodes out there right now. Ironically, our most popular one is the very first one, which that makes sense. But the second most popular one is our last one, I guess. So I don't know. That's cool. First and last.
That works.
Yeah. Cities for us. 230 cities. We've got listeners in 230 cities in 32 countries. I think that's the coolest thing for us as two meteorologists. Again, obviously we do kind of equate a lot of stuff back to Iowa and the Midwest just because that's where we're from. That's what we know. But if you are one of those listeners in another city, another country, let us know. And we'd be happy to maybe add in some stats for you guys that are a little bit more local to you. US, Singapore, and Germany are our top countries. So, literally all across the world, which is very fun for us. Let's see. Over 1,500
Did you say Germany was the third one? Germany was the third one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Over 1,500 downloads, We're in the top 50% of podcasters, which we'll take that as a passing grade. So thank you. We'll take that as support.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all my stats. Yeah. But it's been
Well,
fun.
cool. Well, so, knowing this now in 2026, because we worked, Jan, together in an area that our area of responsibility was actually quite restrictive.
Mhm.
We only had half a state to cover. We didn't have to do anything more. We kind of lived in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
With the work that I do now and the work that you do now, we have opportunities to bring additional weather stories to this platform. One thing that happened last week into last weekend was a big old cyclone. It was a low pressure system, basically. It came into the UK. They named it Goretti, and it came in there with massive winds. And we've also had atmospheric rivers hitting California as well as Southwest Canada. So there's been some international weather to talk about. And because of the amount of countries you're talking about, we may bring that in occasionally. If we see some global stuff that's worth talking about, that might be worth just a little bit of attention, because until you mentioned these statistics during this cast, I had no idea the reach was that far.
Yeah.
So I think it's to everybody's benefit, including ours, in brushing up on international weather units and things like that, because, it's different than the U.S. It's meters per second, kilometers an hour, millimeters
Absolutely.
of rain around other parts of the world. So,
yeah,
man, that's good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to everybody
Yeah.
who has listened. And thank you for continuing to listen. Again, we want this to be something that you are interested in and that really gets at the weather questions that you are most excited about or curious about. So please do continue to submit those. Email us, send us a voice link, weathered, WEATHERED. Gotta make sure I'm spelling it right. Just add the ED at the end of weatheredquestions@gmail.com. You can join in the conversation that way, and we would be happy to answer your questions. We'll be back again next week with another brand new episode. Until then, stay safe.